In the first chapter, we will have a look at the move bishop g5. This is a very rare move. It's not really common against 1d5. It's an attempt to steer the game towards the Trompowsky territory, that is d4, knight f6, and then bishop g5. And then bishop g5 is a common option amongst aggressive players seeking some dynamic game right off the bat. However, after bishop g5, the bishop feels kind of empty here on g5. It doesn't really have a target yet, and it can be used to attack it and to gain some tempi, to gain some time for development. It is also a bullet trick. Maybe White is hoping for us to pre-move e7, e6, but obviously we are not interested in that. So after bishop g5, it is very thematic for us to go for the move c5. As I have already stated in the introduction, we are going to play this move against pretty much every single move that White can play on the second move. After c5, White has a few options, of course. I think the most principled and the most direct is to capture on c5. So we will treat it as the main line, and we will consider it last. But before that, White also has a few options to protect the d4 pawn, or to try and go for some dynamic play. The two first moves that seem pretty obvious are e3 and c3. So let's start with e3. After e3, we can just go knight c6, and after c3, we can go for the move f6. And here already White starts experiencing some problems with the bishop, because after bishop h4, we have a very, very nice move, knight h6. I really like this move. It's a typical device in this kind of positions where the bishop is really not standing optimally on this square. After bishop d3, knight f5, bishop g3, h5, we have a great initiative. We already have the advantage, and White's opening play was not really successful at all. That's why White should probably start with the move knight f3, completing some development. But then again, we can hit the bishop with f6, and this is by the way another advantage of not putting the knight on f6. We'll see it on a few occasions that actually delaying the move knight f6 and leaving the knight on g8 for a little longer can provide us with some really nice benefits. And after bishop f4, we go for the move g5. This is a very nice move again, and we go for h5. This is very typical. We are threatening to trap the bishop with h4, and we want to develop the knight on h6, where it's going to be super active, also hitting the bishop. After something like h3, we can take, play knight h6. We are threatening knight f5, g4 is going to come, d4 is going to be a weakness, queen b6 is another idea to consider. So White's position is already very, very suspicious. So e3 cannot really be recommended. The bishop is in some trouble here, the one on g5, of course. c3 seems to be a little bit more solid, but then after queen b6, we immediately hit the pawn on b2, and this is where the absence of the bishop on c1 makes itself felt very bad for White. White should play queen b3, but now an interesting thing happens, because after knight c6, e3, and c4, we transpose into some sort of a London structure where the bishop on g5 is not really clear what it's doing, because after queen c2, we can immediately play the move e5. And after d takes e5, maybe you have seen a similar motive from the London system, and that is the move bishop f5. Of course, the bishop is taboo because of the hanging pawn on b2, so White has to play another very clumsy move like queen c1, and then we just recapture the pawn on e5 with a great advantage already out of the opening. So that cannot be recommended for White. White can trade the queens, but the endgame doesn't really make things better for White. White could try playing e4, but after e6, we play b5. This is very typical. Yes, we do have the double pawns, but here they work in our favor, because we can very quickly push b5, b4, damage the white pawn structure, and create a lot of weaknesses on the queen side. After a3, we go b4 anyway. And after something like knight e7, again, white is suffering really, really badly. The pawn on d4 is bad. Our structure is better. Again, it's not really clear what the bishop on g5 is doing. So c3, another move that doesn't really go with the move bishop g5. So at first, white is trying to play dynamically. Then white switches to some more cautious play like e3 or c3. This cannot really end well for white. So I of course had a look at some more dynamic possibilities for white. One of them being the move knight c3. This is inspired by the Jabava London, where the knight is put on c3 very, very early on. But we can simply play knight c6. Now, white shouldn't take on c5, because then we would have the move d4. So white can play e3, but then again the move f6. It's very strong with the bishop on g5. As you can see, again, the bishop on g5 is just asking for trouble. It's not really creating any threats to us, but it can be kicked away, it can be pushed away very, very easily. And after bishop h4, we have a very, very nice move h5. This is another resource, another device to remember. With the bishop being stranded on h4, we can play h5, threatening the move g5, and again threatening to trap the bishop with g5, h4. Bishop e2 makes some sense to attack the pawn on h5, and then we can play bishop f5. This is a very tricky move, because if white captures the pawn on h5, then of course g6 follows, and the two bishops on h5 and h4 would be under attack. So white would lose material. After h3, we can just take and play e6, and white's pieces are just standing very, very awkwardly. White has weaknesses, white has bad pieces, queen b6 is coming, b2 is weak, d4 is weak, bishop on h4 is stranded, so white's position is already very, very bad. White can try dc5 to create some sort of a mess on the board, but this is not scary, at least not for us, and we can immediately advance in the center with e5. After something like bishop h5, g6, g4, this is the only move to avoid some material losses, and we can take on h5 and push for d4. And this is a very entertaining line, and a very exciting position where white is really, really in trouble. White is being put to the test, and it's a super challenging position for white to even hold on and not lose immediately, because the king is in the center. There's a bunch of weaknesses. We have a raging initiative, so white is already in trouble here. So knight c3 also cannot be recommended. As we have seen, the bishop is just being pushed away. Queen b6 is coming at some point. A lot of stuff is going wrong for white. That's why I think d takes c5 should be considered the critical move. Also because I think it's the most consistent with the move bishop g5. So white is trying to go for some early initiative. White is trying to create some imbalances very early on in the game. So now we can play the move h6. We are asking some questions to the bishop. Where does it want to go? And obviously the bishop has a few squares to go. First, the move like bishop d2 doesn't really make any sense to me. We can just play e6, recapture the pawn. We have a space advantage. White has wasted a few tempi with the bishop. It doesn't really make sense for white at all to me. Bishop f4 can be played, but this is also risky because this puts the bishop on another square where it can be very easily attacked. So we can start with knight c6, preparing e5, knight f3 of course to stop it. But now we do have the move g5, and this is getting again very, very unpleasant. After bishop g3, we fianchetto our bishop. We are attacking the pawn on b2 of course, so white has to play a move c3. There is no really other good option, and then we play the move f5. I think this is a very, very exciting move. we are immediately threatening f4, and after e5, oh man, this looks very, very bad for white, really. With the bishop on g3, with no space for the pieces, our center looks scary. It looks super intimidating for white. So I believe black is just much, much better here. And in practice, I wouldn't like to be in white's shoes in that position ever. So bishop f4 is not really a good option. Again, the bishop can be attacked. White is lagging behind in development. So bishop h4 again looks like the most consistent option, and this is again going to be our main line. But here again we can push away the bishop, and after bishop g3 we fianchetto our bishop, and our bishop is going to be really strong on this diagonal. Again, white needs to cover the diagonal, of course. And now we have two options. I decided to offer you the move knight f6. There's also a move knight a6, which is played more commonly. There's nothing wrong with this move. We are just recapturing the pawn back, and we just have a good position out of the opening as well. But I think knight f6 is a little bit more interesting. It gives us even more dynamic play. I think it's maybe a little bit more ambitious, but then again, knight a6 is just a fine option as well. But okay, let's stick to our move, which is knight f6. Oh, sorry, knight d2, because we are already planning to play knight e4, knight d2, and now simply knight d7. So we want to recapture the pawn. And if we recapture the pawn, then we are just left with a space advantage, with a better development. So white should probably attempt to defend the pawn, or at least to delay our capture on c5. So white has two ways to do that. Of course, is b4, and the other one is knight to b3. b4 is already very suspicious, and white can get in a lot of trouble in this line, because we do have the move knight e4. It's a very strong move, and after capture, we are threatening a5. We are threatening the pawn on c3. White has to defend, and now we play a fantastic move e3. So we are basically putting initiative and dynamism above everything else here. We are just trying to hinder white's development, because now look at the white's pieces here. It's gonna take so much time for white to even finish development. In the meantime, we can pounce on some weaknesses on the queen side with the move a5, and after a4 trying to consolidate, we just castle, and we play g4. After knight d4, knight f6, white is in huge trouble in view of knight e4, queen d5, the undeveloped king side again, the bishop on f1, the rook, the king, which has to stay in the center. It's looking very bad for white. And after knight d2, we can play knight f6, threatening knight d5, so white is forced to play e4, and then after captures, we play the move queen d4. So we are basically using every single weakness that white has. As you can see, we are playing knight f6. We want to play knight d5. White played e4. Okay, white is defending against one threat, but then another weakness appears suddenly on d4, and we can immediately bring the queen there. And this is a very difficult position for white to navigate. Already, white had to find so many only moves just to stay in the game. And the white problems are not over by any means. After rook c4, queen b2, it's just such a difficult position for white to play. Bishop e6 is coming, knight h5, rook d8. As you can see, white has so many weaknesses. Yes, white may be 2 pawns up, but it's completely meaningless here in this position, with the king stranded on e1, with the bishop on f1, with the rook on h1. As you can see, all of the white's pieces are standing badly, and we have fantastic coordination, fantastic development. I would say that white, in practice, white is probably just lost already. Okay, so going back to this moment, from just to remind you from our main line of bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, bishop g7, c3, knight f6, knight d2, knight d7. So it is a tricky move because we are kind of tempting white to play the move b4, which as we have seen is just super dangerous and just very, very bad also objectively. White can also play knight b3, and this seems to be a better choice. Now we castle first, and after knight f3, we play the move knight e4. And this is again a tricky move, because once again we are tempting white to be greedy with the move queen d5. And as we will see, this is a pretty bad move for white. Another option is e3, and we will save it as the main line because it's more solid. So we will save that for later. But for now, let's check the move queen d5. It seems like white can just grab a pawn, a central one, and maybe get away with it. Well, that's not really the case because now we have a very nice move, knight c5. Takes. And now it might seem like after the queen trade, our initiative has vanished, maybe, and that the development advantage will not be that meaningful. But again, that's not the case. We still have a huge initiative, a huge lead in development. For instance, now after the fourth trade, knight a4 is already a very big threat. So white has to be very, very careful. For instance, a move like e3 and knight a4, white is losing the pawn because rook b1 is met by bishop f5. And if the pawn on b2 falls, this means that the pawn on c3 will be very, very weak. So the whole white structure will be shattered. So white should try to consolidate with the move knight d4. And now I recommend playing knight a4. Because we can take on d4, and this is just a drawish position. Yes, we give up our strong bishop, but we win back the pawn. We have huge activity, and it's very likely that some more pieces are gonna get traded. Maybe some opposite color bishops endgame is on the way, and it just looks pretty dry and drawish. But still, if you just want to equalize the game and maybe trick your opponent somewhere deep in the end game after this move, you can also go for it. It's a totally sound and solid option as well. But we can also investigate the move knight a4 a little bit further. I think it's a very interesting one. White should castle. What else to do? How else to defend the pawn? And now again we have a few options. Now I would recommend taking on d4. Because now the king is on c1, meaning that we will definitely use the c file because we are forcing the opening of the c file after something like this. So we will be using the c file to attack the white king. Another option is to play e5 and bishop e6. This also gives us a very nice initiative. The pawn on a2 is hanging. White is still underdeveloped on the king side, so this is another good option that we can consider. But I think bishop d4 is somewhat more direct here in this case. And after takes, we play bishop e6, king b1, and now we insert a check. This was actually a pretty tricky sequence by us. We lure the king to b1, and then we give a check, and then we play rook c8. And here you can just see the difference in the development. We have all the pieces in the game already. Moves like rook d4 are in the air thanks to the weak back rank. Also rook c2 is on the way. So white's position looks very scary. White has to play e3, but then rook c2. And yeah, we have a huge initiative. The rooks are gonna penetrate the second rank probably, and white is really struggling to survive here even. And yeah, I decided to finish the line here. Of course, we could continue even further, but I think it's already quite a detailed description of what could happen to white. So okay, here that that shows why the move Queen d5 is such a risky choice by white. Because as we have seen, even without the queens, the initiative is not gone. The development advantage is still there, and white is still struggling to consolidate and develop the pieces. So e3 is definitely more solid, but at the same time, after e3, we can just take on c5, and after the trade, bishop e2, rook e8. Uh, now we with some simple play, with easy, logical, sensible moves, we are just getting a very good position out of the opening. Um, the h6 and g5 pawns are not really a weakness. I wouldn't say that weakens our king in any way, and I would even say that it creates extra chances for us of getting some attack on the king side. For instance, after we play the move e5, even f5 can be considered straight away to harass the bishop on g3 again. This bishop on g3 is a constant source of worries for white. White always has to watch out whether the bishop is gonna get trapped. We have more space, we have a healthy structure, no weaknesses, good pieces. So I don't think there's anything to complain about here as black. So I think that would cover the move bishop g5. On the second move, as you can see, it's not threatening at all, and oftentimes it can actually get very risky for white because the bishop is just not doing well on g5 so early in the game, and it can be easily attacked. It can be used to gain tempi, to gain time for our development, and as you have seen, that was a pretty common theme here in this variation, is that in every line we had a development advantage. We had some dynamic options because white had lost so much time moving around the bishop without much sense in the opening. So that covers the first chapter, and hope you enjoyed that, and see you in the next one.